you. Let me repeat that. We reconvene into open session at 6 p.m. And no action was taken in closed session. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge. All right. Comments and announcements by board members. Bill, do you have anything for us tonight?
I have none, thank you.
Jessica, do you have any comments or announcements?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Sharon, do you have any comments or announcements?
I do. I wanted to thank the teachers and staff for working so hard, so diligently to get our schools and our classrooms ready for our students to come back full time. I know that a lot of you had to bend over backwards to make this happen, and I just want them to know that we appreciate the dedication to our students' health and to their safety and to their academic needs and their emotional needs.
Absolutely. I'll second that opinion.
And I do also want to say that I will be attending my first California School Board Association meeting, or delegate assembly, May 15th and 16th as your representative. So after that time, I should have a report for the board.
Thank you. Congratulations. Pamela, do you have any comments or announcements?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And I don't have anything other than my heartfelt gratitude to all the teachers and staff at Oroville City Elementary School Districts for your energy and your commitment and your loyalty to our children. Spencer.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I want to ditto what Ms. Nilsson shared about the reopening. We had a great reopening last week. I wouldn't say it was 100% perfect, but I would say that it was 95% perfect. Kids were really excited to be back in school. I saw a lot of contraband hugs, fist pumps, and a lot of nice, warm welcoming from student to student. It was great to see. We're hoping the honeymoon era lasts all the way through the end of school, but I know that's probably too good to be true, but our kids are great. We're happy to have them back, and we're so grateful to our staff for the great job that they did to getting us back to where we're at this point. A couple other items. We are currently reaching out to all of our IFLC families, which is our independent program, and our distance learning families that stayed on distance learning. And I have one of our IFLC secretaries calling all those families to basically survey them about which program they would like to have next year. Currently, next year, we're looking to come back into our traditional models where we have IFLC, and then we have our traditional Monday through Friday program in person. We do not plan on offering distance learning next year to our families, but we do know that our IFLC program can fit a lot of the needs that we currently do in our distance learning program. Ms. Campolo is here with us tonight, and she does a great job, and she's been in that program for many years, but she's been the solo teacher in independent study. This year we've had 3, and we've had a lot of parents that have been very happy with that program. So we're looking to see if we want to expand that program into multiple teachers to meet the needs of our families. And so I'm making that announcement tonight that that's happening. And if there's any other families out there that would like that program, please reach out to me or your principal, and we'd be more than happy to work with you. Also, I don't want to take a lot of comments, but the CDC has a lot of graduation and promotional guidelines that we have to follow. So traditional graduation is probably not going to happen this year based off those guidelines. However, Ishii Hills is working with the city. Actually, both schools are working with the city, and we're looking to do Ishii Hills promotion at Riverbend Park and doing a very special program there. And then I believe it's Centennial Park. Is there a Centennial Park here in up on the levee? I just want to make sure I had the name right. We're looking, Central School has already booked that venue for graduation up there. The idea is to be able to get families in and out, still be able to take pictures and do some things, but not necessarily sitting in bleachers and, with the kids and things like that. We're trying to make it as special and as great as possible and as memorable. And we feel that both those venues are kind of highlight Oroville as well and the beauty that we have here and make it as special as possible. And then Janet, you'll be talking a little bit about summer school tonight. So thank you very much.
Andrew, do you have any comments or announcements?
I'll just one comment. I think a few of us were able to attend the support and cultural awareness discussion put on by Ruby Thomas about what it is like to be an African American in Oroville. I just wanted to thank Ruby Thomas for her time. It was very informative, and I think we all took a lot away from that time. So I just wanted to make sure I formally thanked Ruby Thomas here at this board meeting because it was very, very informative.
Thank you. Miss Janet, do you have any comments or announcements?
I have a couple.
Thanks. Okay, I just wanted to give you an update on summer school. We have sent out our enrollment packets and have made announcements about summer school. So in our first 2 weeks, we have about 110 students that have signed up. So we're encouraged by that, but we are still wanting to increase our enrollment for the summer. We want to have summer school at Wyandotte, Ophir, and Central Middle. So we do need to still increase our attendance. So we are working with creating some more posters around campus. We're asking the teachers to please let parents know if those kids could really benefit from summer school to please sign up. Our summer school is a combination of really looking and helping to mitigate learning loss. So we're doing it in math and language arts in the morning, which would be academic focus. In the afternoon, we're partnering with BCOE. And they have all kinds of great summer camp programs and ideas, like they're doing art so that they study different artists and learn how to paint like them. They have robotics all the way down to kindergartners can do bobots, which are little bees that move around. And they have a program K-8 for robotics. They have music program. They're doing cooking and a lot of activities and sports too. So it's a real well-rounded program. So our kids will get academics and a lot of ability to get out and learn and do new things after having been kind of cooped up all year long. So we're excited to be able to offer that. We have also LCAP. I've been meeting with the LCAP groups, and we are meeting in small groups. So I've met with instructional assistants. I've met with the teacher groups, classified, and meeting with the union groups as well, and then doing them in small groups. And we have a series of 3 different meetings that we're doing to get input on the LCAP. And Andrew had talked about it. Part of the DOJ was to create affinity groups. So at the elementary level, what we're doing is each school was going to take one group that they would help facilitate some meetings. And we're looking at doing 3 to 4 each year. And so Teresa is working with the African American group, and she started her first one yesterday. So it was good to hear it was really successful. And We have the Hmong group, which we work with the Hmong Cultural Center. They've been doing that for a while, and that is still going on. And we're hoping to connect with American Indian group so that we can get affinity group going with that. And we're hoping by next fall, we'll be able to start up a Hispanic one as well. So that's kind of my updates for today.
That's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Kimberly, do you have any comments or announcements?
Yes, I just want to say it's been wonderful to have all the students back in person. And I also want to thank all the teachers and support staff for making that possible.
Thank you so much. At this time, I would like to extend the invitation to interested parties who wish to speak on matters that are school-related. For those attending remotely and wish to comment, please use the raise your hand button on the Zoom portion to speak. Comments or questions may also be emailed to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last names for the email. Comments and questions received will be read into the record or addressed during the meeting. However, comments received without the sender's names cannot be shared. Do we have any backpack emails or comments?
We
From the
have
Zoom
no
attendees.
backpack emails at this time.
How about the Zoom attendees?
I do not have any emails as well, and I don't see any Zoom attendees that are interested.
I do see a raised hand. No? Oh, okay. It's just, it's colored yellow for fun. So I see that Mr. Campolo is with us. So we're going to change up the agenda just a smidge and move up the rescinded resignation and approve for employment directors, maintenance and operation facilities, number 10. It is recommended that Mr. James Campolo resignation submitted on March 10th be rescinded and the transfer of his lead maintenance to the director of maintenance and operations and facilities be approved effective May 3rd.
Thank you, Madam President. It is recommended this evening, and thank you I think they appreciate us moving them up in the agenda. I don't know if they want to sit through some of the board policies and ARs that we have to go through. So thank you for being with us tonight. I've invited Mr. Campolo and his lovely wife, Miss Campolo, who is also an employee of the district and does a great job for us. But as our Madam President, Sandra Barnes, shared, Mr. Campolo, this past year, we promoted him to a maintenance supervisor after we had the retirement of Jim Galloway, our previous director of maintenance and operations. We did away with the director position for a time due to budget constraints and things of that nature. And but we still needed someone to lead that crew. Jim has been with our district for 15 years, and we knew he was the right individual for that position. He, in the past year, as he's worked in that supervisory role, he's done an outstanding job leading that crew. And in March, he gave me his letter of resignation. He was looking to retire and maybe slow down his life or do some other things. And I said, oh no, you are not stepping away from us that easy. And I went to our board and shared with them. And as well as our board feels like we are deeply in need of a director because we have a lot of projects coming up and we need someone to lead our district in facilities and operations as we look to renovate and update and upgrade our district. And so I met with Jim and with the permission of the board to offer him to appoint him as the new director of maintenance operations. And because I'm so charismatic, he said yes. And so if it pleased the board, I would recommend that we approve the appointment. The rescinding an appointment of Jim Campolo as our new Director of Maintenance and Operations.
Because we don't have Pamela in the room with us, we're going to go ahead and continue with a roll call vote. Can I please have a motion?
I move that we accept the, sorry, I should have prepared, that we accept the promotion to Director of Maintenance for Jim Campolo.
I've been preparing all day. Didn't do me any good. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Pamela. Pam, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye. It is our privilege and our pleasure to promote Mr. James Campolo to the Director of Maintenance and Operations. Thank you. Thank you for your service
Congratulations.
and giving us a second
Jim?
Thank
chance.
you. Yes,
Would
thank
you
you.
like to say anything, Jim?
Look forward to the next year. We have a lot to do. We got a lot done and made a lot of happy this year. Keep doing that and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, and you can get ready. You can go home and get ready for tomorrow.
At this time, I'd like to open a public hearing to the Independent Auditor's Report of OCESD financials as of June 30th, 2020. Yeah, last summer.
So to present the audit, I have Paul Pham. He's from our new auditors, Chavan and Associates. I'll say that the audit experience during COVID was different than prior audit experiences, but it was very positive, and I feel that they did a very thorough job. And so Paul is gonna present the audit report to you. Paul, take it away.
Hi. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, board, for inviting me out to share with you the results from this last June 30th, 2020 audit. I will go, because it looks like you guys have a long schedule ahead, I'll go directly to the audit results, but at the end, I can open up for questions. I can go over auditing standards and scope, as well as our audit process, if anyone would like. So with the audit results and with respect to the financial statements, we did issue an unmodified opinion, which is a good thing. It means that the financial statements were presented fairly in all material respects. With internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance, our audit did identify deficiencies in internal controls over financial reporting that we consider to be a significant deficiency. This finding is related to the district's associated student body accounts, and that's described on page 85 of the audit report. And this is a repeat finding from the prior year. The other finding from the prior year related to the district's financial closing process, they were able to clear that this last year, and the recommendations were properly implemented. So we're moving in the right direction. So good job to Andrew and his team. And then our tests disclosed no instances of non-compliance or other matters that were required to be disclosed under governmental auditing standards. With respect to the state programs and compliance, the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements of state programs. And there were no significant uncorrected adjustments, no difficulties with the audit other than the COVID restrictions. And I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Andrew and his team and other departments in the district for helping with the audit. The remote audits can be a little bit more cumbersome and require a lot more resources. So thank you. We truly do appreciate that extra effort this year. And then lastly, we had no disagreement with management. So overall, the good audit and making improvements. And that's all I have. And I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for our guest? Yeah, I don't think we have any questions. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And on the one ASB audit item, because it's a repeat, if we hit it for the third time, it's you get into the bad news time. So I'm going to be working directly with those principals and ASB people to make sure that we have those processes in place and that they're sharp and correct like they should be. So we will be resolving those. I'll be resolving them personally in the next week or two. So
Is there a way at the beginning of every school year that we could get with those groups and have a quick training session with them?
yeah, we recently sent the whole group of us to formal training right before COVID happened. So I don't see it as a lack of training. It just, you know, it's just how things went, and some processes weren't followed properly, and we're gonna clean that up. So
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
At this time, I'd like to invite the public to comment on action items listed on the agenda. For those attending remotely, again, please use the raise your hand button on Zoom in order to speak. Comments may also be emailed to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last names. Comments received that pertain to items listed on the agenda will be read into the record. However, comments received without the name cannot be read. The Brown Act does not allow the governing board to discuss or take any action items that are not posted on the agenda. Do we have any emails or raised hands?
Not at this time.
I do not have any emails either.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have any questions or comments on the consent agenda? I had a couple of questions on the warrants specifically, just very quickly. Coming up, we do have the is it PTI, the transportation review that was done, and that question my first question on the warrants about Briggs and Firestone rental space for our transportation vehicles. Maybe we can address that there if you'd like to make note of that. I promise I try not to forget.
Were there some specific warrants that were of concern from Briggs, or you just want to talk about the topic in general?
The topic in general. So in the PTI, just spoiler alert, in the review that was done for the transportation program that we share with Oroville Union High School, the independent auditors made note and recommended that we move our transportation vehicles out from under Briggs and Firestone because we store them there and we pay them a monthly fee to store them there and move them back over to SDO. So
and we'll discuss that in the PTI
indeed.
PTI time.
I did notice that there were several charges for Central Middle School and Ophir School to PG&E that were all separate charges, but not grouped together.
Let me look those up real quick.
I wish the warrants had discrete page numbers, but they don't.
I know there was some work done at both PG&E, at Central and Ophir. And I can look through these and get back to you after the meeting,
Okay.
but at Central, which is, the warehouse and Wyandotte and all that, we did install a generator that required some special PG&E size of pipe process to get the appropriate amount of gas to that generator. The generator is to back up the power for the freezers for all of our food.
Oh,
So
okay.
our district has a central warehouse, and the central warehouse is where all of our food is received, and then we distribute it throughout the district. But when we have power outages, we can go collect it all back up and put it back in the freezer or the refrigeration units there, and that has that generator backup. And at Ophir, there were some charges that had to do with, we had some things we had to do with moving the Pioneer Union School District in, as far as upgrading some of our things we're doing there. So I can look into the Ophir one more fully and get back to you guys.
Okay. What is SPURR, Spur?
Yeah, that's our natural gas.
Oh, okay. And why are we buying gift cards from Dutch Brothers?
I could look into the specifics. I know we bought a lot of Dutch Brothers gift cards at one point as a thank you to our teachers
Okay,
that Spencer
I like it.
put on didn't actually put on a Santa hat, but he went around the district and made sure that he personally gave all those gift cards to all of our teachers as a way to thank them for all the hard work they were doing during some of the more difficult and sort of morale tearing down times of this COVID pandemic.
So this list of warrants, this spans a slightly longer time period than what we usually encounter?
I can speak to the gift cards as well. Both of our middle schools buy gift cards at a lot of our local vendors as incentive programs for attendance, grades, and other things like Student of the Month. I do know that specifically Dutch Bros is one of the favorites of our students, and I do know that our middle schools did purchase cards last month.
So that's what that is. I was thinking of something for previous, but no, this is just the 1 month.
So we're facilitating a caffeine addiction to our children?
All of our kids get smoothies there. Thank you.
Right. My next question, I completely forgot where I was at. Oh, multi-month. So we're getting more warrants on this particular list that go back a lot further because we've been,
It just has to do with the schedule of the
Right.
board meetings.
okay. Amazon charges.
So
Are we a Prime?
yes, we have a Prime account.
Oh, good.
A lot of the things that teachers need for the classroom are readily available via Amazon. Right now, and for the last year, we've had a supply chain has been a real issue. So we're buying things where we can find them. Not all the time can I get, say, I need a pair of headphones with microphone. Normally we get it through a specific vendor. They'll be like, oh yeah, we'll sell you those, and they'll be here in sometime in 2022.
Exactly.
Because we have no supply of it. So we'll go to other vendors that we haven't normally gone to for those types of purchases. Additionally, we are doing some mini grants, and part of the mini grants has, the teachers are putting together their grants, and they'll have here are the things I want to go buy, and it'll be their Amazon cart, and they'll go do that and get those things for their classroom. So we do have quite a bit of Amazon purchasing right now. I know that our accounts payable department would be a lot happier if it weren't, because it's easier to deal with other types of vendors. But that's sort of the state of where we're at.
Full disclosure, even I mean, I am a Walmart associate, and I probably should have a biased opinion, but I also work in the digital department, so I also know exactly the kinds of roadblocks ordering online really entails, and I completely understand the necessity of and appreciate the value that Amazon brings,
Yeah.
especially during this time
And
period.
we do price shop, but now it's who has the best price and who can I actually get it from.
And as long as we're primers, at least we have the opportunity to save on some shipping.
Yeah, true.
My last question concerns Tahoe Pier. We're still doing a lot of bottled water.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the like, what do you call it? A water cooler. You have them in the different staff rooms, and it has a stand and a bottle. That's Tahoe Pure.
Okay.
So yes, we're still doing that. We did try at one or two of the sites going to a similar type of unit that was a purifier,
Right.
but we didn't have a lot of success with that. And also the plumbing was a little bit suspicious. So we've just decided, hey, we're going to stick with this system with the bottles of water instead of converting over at this time with the units that we were able to get at the time. But it's nothing we've really focused on lately.
So is that the same kind of plumbing that's delivering water to our students that is so suspicious?
No, it's just the units, because they're kind of freestanding, and then you got a hard metal pipe going into it. So there were some challenges with it, but these aren't like ADA compliant student units. This is something that's in a staff lounge or a break room. And it has nothing to do with the quality of water. It's just the units themselves were a little bit tricky and becoming a maintenance issue.
Okay. I think those are all the questions that I have. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Pamela, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion carries. On to new business, approve the memorandum of understanding with Oroville City Wyandotte Academy Infrastructure Improvement Project.
So this is another one for me. We had an opportunity to partner with the city of Oroville. They have a grant that's related to COVID funds. And they also have some other streams of money to invest in this. And with the city of Oroville, we wrote a grant that would be improving the track that's in between Wyandotte and Central. We would also make it for after hours and weekend public use as well. The plan that we have right now has us putting a fence clear around the track and then having a pedestrian path from Wyandotte Avenue down to the track, and then have LED lighting, or not LED lighting, solar lighting all around the track and along the path. And also the tennis courts would be part of that as well there at Wyandotte. So we saw this as a way for us to better use our facilities, get a big upgrade to our field. The track itself isn't going to change the surface type. It's still going to be that same type of rock material, but we will be, completely redone. Additionally, there are some drainage issues on that field that have been an ongoing problem, and this grant will address those things as well by adding in the appropriate drainage, so we don't, because when it floods, it kind of wrecks the track and puts holes in the grass. So we're hoping that we'll be able to get this grant. It's still up in the air as to whether or not we'll get it. This MOU is saying that we're going to work together with the city of Oroville to do our parts of that grant. They're going to do their parts of the grant. So this is sort of the standard agreement that when you get into a relationship, working on a grant together, this just sort of outlines who's doing what formally.
It'll be very exciting if we get it. Do we have any comments or questions? No comments or questions. I'd like to have a motion to approve the MOU with the city of Oroville and Wyandotte Academy Infrastructure Improvement Project.
I move that we approve the MOU.
Thank you. Second?
A second.
Pamela, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
I vote yes, the motion carries. At this time, I'd like to move on to adopting revised board policies and approved new and revised administrative regulations.
Janet?
Okay, well, tonight we will be bringing forward several board policies and ARs for your approval. Many of these documents have been, I'm going to take this off, have been revised either because they were outdated or they were board policies that the DOJ has asked us to take a look at, and they wanted additional items put into the policies above and beyond what necessarily the law would say. So when we're doing this, our process has been that Kim will take the board policy and look at it and compare it to Gamut. Gamut is a company that we go with that tells us what their recommendation is for any and all board policies, and they keep everything updated according to the latest legislation and what's been passed. After she goes through it with that, it goes to the DOJ and they take a look at it and they put what they would like to see in the board policy. It comes back to us. We take a look at it. And if we have any questions or disagree with anything, then we make our changes, send it back to the DOJ. They take a look at it. And a lot of times it'll either end up in a phone conversation or a little bit more emails going back and forth. So for example, there was a board policy I was working on the other day that talked a lot about not allowing any isolation. Well, isolation, depending on how you define that, could be very restrictive, or it could be something that a practice that we don't want. So in our emails going back and forth, they looked at the policies, they looked up some definitions, and they ended up on the agreement that the definition of an isolation would be a student that's put into a room that they can't get out of. So then at that point, it's like, okay, I can live with that definition. And then we moved on with the policies. So it's some back and forth of looking at the policies. Once they go through everything, they fine tune it. We come to agreement on what the policy is going to be. We're bringing it to you. Then the last stage is we have to submit what we sent to you, the board, for approval. And they're going to look at that and make sure that it completely aligns with all of the changes that they wanted, that we had agreed on would be made. So the final step is going to be the DOJ will now look at it one last time and make sure that we've made all the correct revisions that we were supposed to. What I would like to say is it has been a lot of work. I really want to compliment Kim because she getting ready for board meetings and a variety of other things. It really has taken a large amount of time, and she has worked late into the evening several times so that because they may want a policy in the next couple of days, like we want Tuesday. So it's like, okay, we jam. So anyway, thank you, Kim, for all your work. I just want to recognize that she's really stepped up. And these are the policies that we're doing this time. They agreed that that we could do it in 4 batches. So we're submitting these 25 to you tonight. Next time, I think they're going to be about 30 of them. And then the next time, so many, and until we get through all of them that they want us to take a look at. And some of it, like I said, they want us to do it just because we need to update and get aligned with current law. And some of it has to do with they're wanting to make sure that we are very clear on our the culture that we're trying to cultivate in this district, and that we are really trying to make sure that everything is equitable. So these are the policies tonight. Other than the UCP, that's a big one. That one really determines how all investigations go. A lot of board policy will refer to the UCP, so that had to go first. Because it will dictate really how we do our investigations if and when there is a complaint that would come forward. That was the most important one that we had to get done. And the rest of them, I don't know if there's any real logic to them other than they send me which ones we're gonna work on, and we work on them. Any questions or comments?
I have a few.
Sure.
So what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing this correctly, is this isn't our policy. This is DOJ's policy, and our choices are we can adopt it or we can adopt it. And it's what it is, whether we like it or not. We don't change it, because if we change it, we send it to them. They send it back, tell us no, put it is. It was generous of them to allow us more time to adopt their policies, and we appreciate that. I'm voting no, and it's not because I understand that we have to adopt these. I just don't like them telling us what to do. It's not our policy by no stretch of the imagination. It's their policy, and we don't get to pick or choose how we're going to run our district. We do what I guess our overlords tell us. Otherwise, there's a problem. It's not the America I live in, and I don't want to make this an America conversation. Don't get me wrong. It just seems wrong that we're having this outside body dictate so heavily to us what we're going to do here. I trust you. I trust Dr. Holtum. I trust this board to make good decisions for our community, our children. So whatever they are, they are. I don't even know what the point is. Why don't we just slap them all together all at once, slam them through, and tell them, there you go. We've accomplished your feel-good policy. So there you go. I don't know. I just don't like the idea of this. I mean, I appreciate your work. I appreciate Kim's work. And I'm sorry that you have to go through so much of this. And then you have to listen to belligerent, no, I'm not belligerent, but uninformed comments like mine. You know, again, I apologize. It's a lot of work for you guys. And I recognize the hard work. And I'm really sorry that we're started down this path. I wish it was another path, but this is where we are.
I'd like to comment that the DOJ requirements were the impetus for this, but was long overdue. A lot of those policies were very old and outdated. And I appreciate all the time that you have put into taking into consideration their recommendations, but I think that they've been probably personalized. I don't think you you took word for word what they said. Otherwise, that would have been very quick. We would have had them immediately. And I didn't read all of them, but there are some that I read that I was very pleased with the new language, specifically the non-discrimination policies. Very pleased with the inclusive language, with the commitment to creating a safe space for all people who are connected to our district. And I want to thank you for that, for the attention that you put in that, because I think it's important and it was long overdue, and I'm glad that it's there now.
And I have no disagreement about the policies needing to be updated. Where my angst comes in is, let's change one and see what happens. If you really believe that, let's change one and send it back and see what happens. I'm 100% confident we're going to get it back with, nope, put it back. I mean, I just don't like that idea. I mean, I trust you. I would rather have that conversation and vigorously debate it with you and come to a middle ground, not somebody somewhere this felt like this is a good idea. I mean, so I appreciate and I agree. I mean, I don't like so much the way it's going down as opposed to what we're doing.
I have a question. What do you feel out of these 25, are there any major significant changes or alterations that you feel are worth noting?
I think that we've changed a little bit some processes and timelines on the UPC in terms of what we needed to do. There were a couple of them that actually in this batch were very outdated and really were necessary that we get compliant with the law. And so if we hadn't been checking ed code along with our board policies, if an incident came up, we could have gotten ourselves in a little bit of trouble. So updating the policies has been, even though it's a little arduous because of the timeline we're given, it's been important that we do update it. In terms of the content, I think that as Sharon had mentioned, it's really they're making statements that they want us to ensure that we're being inclusive. And there's nothing in here, I think, that people would disagree with. We do want to be respectful of everybody and we do want to meet the needs of everybody. So I think that the overall, what they're looking for is positive. And on this batch of documents that we've got going forward, and a lot of it is, like I said, complying with the law too.
And if I may, the UCP it stands for Uniform Complaint Policy.
Sorry.
And that's okay, Janet. Janet's been working on this for months and she knows what that is, but I want make sure the board understands that. And that's a major thing in our district of when we have a student or a parent or a community member that has a concern that there's a policy and procedure that we have in place here in our district. We have had a policy in place, but as you know, some of our policies are over 10 years old, and a lot of things have changed over the 10 years, in the past 10 years as far as our country and laws and bills and things like that. Now, one thing I will share with you is when I got here, the board asked us to start updating our board policy, and we were. Kim has been working, doing about 2 per month because they are arduous. Now we're in a situation where we can't just do 2 per month. We are doing 25 per month, which is what's brought on some of the other conversations I've had with the board this evening about getting us support. But I will share with you that there were a couple issues that I had with some of the policies and some of the wording as far as how strong it was from the DOJ. And I did solicit our attorney to see, how we could kind of work that and mitigate that. And he actually came back and said, Spencer, that you recommended that we keep the language as is, based on the current law and the current bills that are out there right now. So we've put a lot of time, effort and resources into this. I understand the process is very difficult for us. and some of the process that Bill's talking about. You know, I do appreciate the fact that I feel like a board policy should come from the board. But I also know that it's important for us to be totally compliant with the law. And one of my jobs is to make sure that that I do my very best to keep our liabilities down for the district, but also protect our students and their rights. And so I just want to thank Janet for her hard work and Kim for her hard work. And we continue to work on this. And I appreciate all the comments of our board tonight, because I think you're representing our community, because we're all over the place when it comes to this. But I'm encouraged by the fact that our board here in Oroville is representing all of us and some of the concerns that we have. So thank you very much.
Do we have any further comments or concerns? Finding none, I'd like a motion to approve.
Madam President, I move that we approve the revised board policies as indicated in section 9B of this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Pamela. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Bill, how do you vote?
I've reconsidered what I've said that quickly. In order to be in compliance with the law, I'm going to be voting yes. I vigorously disagree with the process and the way that this is coming to us, but to be compliant, I certainly don't want anything left out there where anybody is left in jeopardy, picked on, isolated, or anything. I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody. I don't want our policy to be in the way of that, but I just vigorously object to the process.
Thank you.
So yes, that's a long way of saying yes. I mean,
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Pamela, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I agree with all the comments, considering our situation, but at the same time, I want to thank everyone involved who updated all those policies. We have needed them to be updated for quite some time. Just wish it could have been under better circumstances. So I'd like to vote yes, the motion carries.
Thank
On
you.
to, thank you. Review the quarterly report of district compliance with Ed Code, section 3581, the uniform complaint procedures.
you're off now. You're off. There you. When it's not red, you're on.
There you go. Okay. We do not have any complaints this quarter. So thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Can I please have a motion to approve the quarterly district compliance of Ed Code, otherwise known as Williams?
Madam Chair, you don't need one. There's no
Oh.
action necessary.
You're right, it is procedural. Good catch. This time I'd like to review the OUHSD and the Oroville City Elementary School Department District's Pupil Transportation Program Delivery Model System Review and Study Report, the Transportation Survey by PTI.
So I'm going to start this, and Spencer can jump in. And if you guys have questions, just shoot them at me while we're going through it. Sort of the impetus of this report was the Oroville High School was looking at, what do we do with our transportation system? Do we continue to share it with Oroville City Elementary School District as we have, as long as there are records of a transportation system, or do we split off and create separate transportation systems where Oroville would transport all of its students, the high school would transport all of its students independently of one another? So a third-party agency called PTI, which does these types of audits, we hired them to come in. There's no anything we have to do. This was just a consultant coming in to look everything over with Oroville High and with Oroville City Elementary School District to see what they thought about the situation and what sort of recommendations they could make. The key question of should they split apart, the result was actually quite the opposite. They felt that Oroville City Elementary ultimately should look at how do we have the high school take on more of our special ed transportation, since that's the only piece that we have is special ed transportation. How can the high school take on more of that? Because together, having more students, with having more students, you have a bigger scale. And we're not, I'll just give it a second. Anyway, we're not a big enough agency to be doing this independently. If you haven't had a chance to read this report, I really recommend you do. This type of report is expensive. Thank you, Bill. I really recommend you look through it. It's one of these kind of reports that's going to be referenced with a lot of decisions we make down the road, but is also sort of, there's not a lot of reports like this in our history. So it's an important report for you to understand. Some of the findings, they looked at, should we charge rider fees for our students? And they said, no, it doesn't make sense. They did ask us to assess whether we should continue parking our transportation vehicles at Briggs. Briggs does our maintenance on our vehicles, but we certainly could move them to a different place within our district. We have plenty of space we could do that at. And that's something that we're going to be looking at over the summer, seeing, hey, do we want to move them out of Briggs and then just deliver them to Briggs for maintenance as opposed to paying to park them there? So that's one of the questions that I'll be grappling with over the summer, is to see, what's the cost benefit, and do we get any kind of special deal on the maintenance because we're paying for the parking as well? So we've got to investigate all those things. I sort of wrote notes on all the different findings. They went through, this is a very, very thorough audit. They did interviews with everybody involved in transportation, both agencies. They went through all of our maintenance records. They went through the budget. They went through everything related to our transportation system. So this is a really, really good report if you want to know anything about where we're at. It might bring about some revisions to board policies, which will be totally up to you guys. No one's going to force you to do it. But that'll be coming down the road. Again, it'll all be sort of referencing back to this. And most of the things that they found were, hey, if you need to have better annual bus drills. You need to have a better understanding of certain licensing requirements for the different types of buses. They wanted to have our maintenance and operation transportation clerical person be the one point person for all the different programs, because right now we all sort of are pitching in to help out. But really, they didn't come back with a lot for us other than we should look at how do we work better together with the high school, and maybe they can take on more of the special ed transportation because it makes more sense. It's more economical for us to work together as opposed to having separate transportation systems. And they talked a lot about, consolidating routes, eliminating transfer routes. But again, nothing real too earth shattering or anything that's really going to blow your mind on, the conclusions, but sort of what logically, when you see our system, you say, hey, maybe it should all go to the high school at some point, or some version of that. It's where they're doing all the transportation, and it's one agency doing it. They have a director of transportation at the high school. They have an office just for transportation. And we have, just our special ed transportation pieces, which are very, very good, but certainly not the same type of thing. So do you have any real questions on the PTI study? Go ahead, Spencer.
Just before we turn it over to the board to comment and ask questions, one thing that when we sat down at the very end and debriefed, they were very complimentary of our staff, especially Rhonda, who helps oversee the special ed transportation in our district. They found her to be extremely experienced, knowledgeable, and had a really good knowledge of what we were doing in our district. And we felt very good about that. I also felt very good about in our debrief that sometimes when you get audited, they come back and they have a number of recommendations for you. They had very few for us. And the ones that they did were either easily mitigated or more of a secondary nature, like, hey, this is a recommendation, not an absolute must. So I was very, very proud of that. And the fact that they were able to say that, hey, what you're doing is absolutely financially beneficial to not only our district, but our neighboring high school district, and that we should, like Andrew shared, continue this this relationship because it is working and it is financially beneficial to both parties.
So I found this, I know this sounds weird, rather engaging reading, albeit a bit redundant. It was redundant.
It's an audit. I mean, it's gonna have a summary, then explain it, and then
Yep.
give it to you in bullet point form at the end.
Over and over and over again. I did have a couple of takeaways that were a bit concerning. So again, the maintenance updates, the regular maintenance requirements for each of our vehicles. Apparently those had not been kept up on. So that's an area where our liability increases. We need to tighten that up. Extra vehicles that we don't use. I don't know if that applies, but I did notice that was a concern.
That was mostly a high school. They had one concern about the Feather Falls van because it didn't have an Oroville City Elementary School District sticker on it.
That's what it was.
Because it still said Feather Falls. The high school, they had a lot of concerns about the fleet being mostly vans and not a lot of buses, because typically they consider buses to be safer. And they had a lot of extra vehicles. But for ours, it really was pretty minimal. We only have a handful of vehicles anyway.
I did notice that one thing they touched on was the fact that, and I know I should probably address this to the high school district, but the buses are only filled to about 50% capacity on any given run. Now, considering the fact that the high school district is going to have to, and some of the elementary school districts, not so much, I mean, the middle school, is going to have to change its start time. Whereas now we have a staggered start time where we start at a different time than the high school so that they can make two separate runs for the entire route.
So kind of speaking to that, there's still debate whether or not the high school is going to have to change its start time to a later time. They're going through, because there's in the law, it says if you're a rural district, you don't have to follow this rule, but there is no definition of the word rural anywhere in the law. So awesome. So they're trying to figure out where is rural, are they rural? Once that's established, let's say they have to do that, we would likely have to change our start times to accommodate for them to have a different start time as well. So it's because they can't deliver all the kids at once, right? Not with the way, they can't have every bus at every school at the same time. So that's something that over the next year or two, we'll be working with the high school district on a pretty regular basis, trying to figure out, hey, if you're going to have to do this, what is it going to mean? And for them, it has massive implications because, you're talking about people's schedules that might need to be stretched or shortened. So there's a lot to it for them. So it's a couple of years out, but we will have some impacts from it if they are not considered rural. And we will have to kind of work through those. But those will be things that we'll be working through with them and with the board. But yes, that's definitely on the horizon, and definitely was something we had a very lengthy discussion with both superintendents and both CVOs and their director of transportation about, hey, this is coming and you got to start to plan for what that change is going to be like. So I don't quite know where it'll end, like what's the end result going to be yet, because we haven't gotten through, do we even have to do it yet? But we're certainly engaged in that discussion.
One last question I had, how do you feel about the staggered payments to the high school district. As it stands right now, we pay roughly 50% of the transportation costs, and we send that money over to the school district at certain times of the year. PTI suggested that that was causing an undue burden at some and recommended a quarterly payment system instead.
That's something I'll talk to their CBO about further. Other than because the state's borrowed 35% of our money, and we typically don't have a cash problem. And all the money is still all at the treasurer anyway. It's just which accounts it in. But I'll certainly talk to the CBO about that at Orville High. What they do is we know what the cost will be for next year. It doesn't change next year. It changes the year after for what happens this year. So it's not like it's a super challenging, difficult math problem. It's just a matter of, hey, I'm going to do 4 payments instead of 2. So that's certainly within reason and something I will address with their CBO.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Do we have any other further questions?
I just want to make one comment, sorry, that was back to the rural school districts. So we've asked, we belong to a small school or small district consortium where we have lobbyists that go to the state and ask questions like, what is the definition of rural? Because what we're talking about is high schools and secondary schools. There's a new law that passed that said that high schools, the studies or the research shows that they need to start school later and they do better. And so they passed a law that would impact a lot of high schools and secondary schools. Well, that law said it wouldn't impact rural schools because they have a lot of transportation issues, and they're also transporting students from far away. And so initially I heard that any district that's under the ADA of 2,500 kids would be considered rural, which we're considered rural because we're about 2,100. The high school district is about the same, although they're growing a little bit, but they're still under 2,500. So we'll be kind of watching that and seeing if that's truly the definition. And if there's any changes to that, then we will obviously be bringing back that information back to the board, because any kind of schedule change like that is going to have a lot of impact on our contracts with our teachers, and we'll have to kind of work through that if that indeed becomes an issue.
I have a question. I wondered how the high school district feels about this audit. I mean, it seems pretty positive, the results, that they support the partnership. They say there's benefits of efficiency and economy of scale, and the cooperative service to the community is a benefit. So it sounds good, but I'm curious about the other district. How do they feel about this? Do you know?
I don't know. And this was something that arose from their school board.
Yeah.
I don't think that their administration ever felt that this was a problem, that it wasn't a beneficial. I think they saw it just like we see it as, hey, this is a good thing we're doing together, working together.
Yeah.
So I don't know how their board has responded to it, or if I assume they've seen the report. We've brought it to you as soon as possible, as soon as it was finalized. So I really don't know what
Their agenda tonight.
Okay, so maybe we'll have some sense of it,
Okay.
but I really don't know where their board stands. And I also, I wasn't part of any of that conversation of, do we split it up or what those reasons were? Because just sort of anecdotally, it seems like it makes more sense to work together if you're doing the same thing in the same town, right?
Right.
So I don't know what they're, what exactly they were hoping to get out of that. So I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
We split the cost of this report with the high school district. And I think it's benefited both of our districts in ways that I don't think either district really anticipated. So I'm glad for the opportunity to have had to do this at this time.
Yeah, and this was like I said, please, if you haven't had a chance to read it. This is a really good report. PTI did a wonderful job. They were very easy to work with. But it's very, very thorough, and it has many, many sections, all the different elements of a transportation program, and it breaks it all down. So it really gives you a good sense of where we're at and give us a lot of recommendations and things we can do to fix little things here and there we need to change or update that we're going to be implementing. So it's really a positive thing for us.
That was my comment, was a 72-page audit on busing. There's a lot of room for improvement from what I'm reading, and, big and small. Financially affecting, scheduling affecting, efficiency, communication, all of those things. So it's very lengthy, very detailed.
And as this is just a review of a report, there's no action necessary. Number 10 is a personnel matter that we have already covered. And we'll move on to number 11, business and finance, to accept the auditor's report for 2019, 2020.
So this is what Paul Pham from Chauvin and Associates presented. In my opinion, an audit where the only exception is an ASB finding, which is almost a given. Very, very clean audit. It shows to the very hard and diligent work of the business office, of human resources, of the superintendent's office, of our program offices. It shows that we have very quality people doing very quality and careful work. School business is very, very complex. A whole tapestry of laws and regulations, and to get through an audit with just a few, hey, you didn't have a couple of receipts from your ASB dance, is pretty good, in my opinion. So I'm very proud of this audit, and it reflects the work of all of the business and district staff.
Can I have a motion to approve to accept the auditor's financial report for 1920?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Pamela, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye. I would like to thank Chauvin and Associates for their hard work and our finances department for their hard work. Motion carries. At this point, I'd like to approve the scope and services for fees agreement for GASB 75 actuarial services.
So GASB, as I know it, a GASB, or the Government Accountability Standards Board, creates a series of laws that and then they apply them to different government accounting. One of the things they did in this GASB 75 was that in the wake of the Enron scandal, when people's retiree health benefits were sold out by the company, and when the company folded, they weren't there. They require that we have an actuarial study done on what we owe to the employees for their retiree health benefits. Oroville City Elementary School District does provide retiree health benefits up to age 65 if you meet a series of certain different requirements, depending on if you're a teacher or a classified staff. Each union has different requirements to get those benefits in retirement. But we have to have the actuarial evaluation saying, well, I should put in $3 today for Spencer's retirement if I wanted to save up all the money and have it all in one big pool. Unfortunately, we haven't created a big pool of money for this, but we're still required to have the actuarial evaluation. And an actuary is a person who does statistics based on things like mortality tables, trying to figure out how long people are going to live, how many people are really going to have to use the insurance. So it's a whole different field of math. And our former actuary, we had Lou Filliger, and he unfortunately passed away in a horrible car accident this last year. And so Total Compensation Systems stepped in and finished our last evaluation because it was at the very end what Lou was working on. And we've never had a contract with Total Compensation Systems before. We had a different firm. Then we went to Lou because we weren't happy with the last firm. So I'd like to give these guys a shot. They gave us a 10% discount. And I thought, hey, that sounds great. It's nothing that we deal with them a lot, but you do want them to be responsive and, very clear with their communication. So that was the problem before.
Is this the, first of all, I'd like to extend my sympathies to his family. I didn't know that. That's awful. It was only a 10%.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought that's what was on the contract.
Okay, I saw 5,000 for the first year and 2,500 for the second year.
Yeah, it's not the same report each year. They do the big report every 3 years or 4 years. And then you have the updates on the in between years. So the actual actuarial valuation of your unfunded retirement pension liability is done every 3 to 4 years. And then they have to do some other ones that are related to STRS and PERS and what we also theoretically owe for that as well.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Right.
Any other questions or concerns? I have a motion to approve.
I move that we approve it as presented.
Second,
Second.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Pam, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye, the motion carries. Like to approve the scope of services and fees agreement for Gas B75 actuarial services.
Yeah, that's what
We just did that.
Oh, I skipped one. Good heavens. This time I'd like to accept the bids for milk and dairy products.
Every few years, we have to go out to bid for our milk and dairy products to serve our students in our cafeterias. This year, we went out to bid and we received one bid from Northam, which is in the Crystal brand of milk products. And so I'd ask that the board accept the bids, and then in the second step, you'll award the contract to the bidder of your choice.
Could I have a motion to approve the bids?
Make a motion, we accept the bid and make a motion that we approve the bid. If we can combine them together and that will satisfy staff.
Can I have a second?
I second.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Pamela, how do you vote?
Yes.
I just want to say in advance, I'm really jealous of the price of eggs. I vote aye, the motion carries. We have awarded the contract for milk products to Northam Dairy. Moving on to accepting the bids for bread and bakery.
So this is on here do we have a Franz bid?
I didn't
No, we don't.
think so. No.
We went out to bid for bread and bakery products as we do at the same time we do milk. And we received no bids. Typically, Bimbo and Franz will bid on these contracts. They both are having a real difficult time meeting a daily or multi-week delivery schedule. So at this time, there are no bids, but I wanted to have the record show that we went through the process. There were no bids. And we're going to look at if we're going to go out to bid again, or if we're just going to use frozen bread through our Cisco or whoever else we get products from, instead of doing a fresh bread bid if it's not available for our schools. And one of the comments from Paul, maybe the director or the coordinator of food services, was that we're using bread less and less. Most of what we use are hamburger buns, and those are some things that we can get frozen that are still very high quality and still meet all of the stringent requirements that we have to have for our bread products. So unfortunately, we got no bids. I was kind of shocked and disappointed, but here we are. And we might go out again if we can kind of reconfigure the requirements for delivery. We might try to go again and do another bid for bread. There's still time, but at this time there are no bids, so there's nothing for you guys to vote on. I just wanted to have that on the agenda so the public would know.
Okay, thank you. Any concerns regarding not having any bread? At this time, we'd like to move on to and this one confused me. Are we rejecting the request for proposals for infrastructure and modernization utility savings program.
Yeah, so we talked about this a meeting or two ago. We had gone out to bid for some design build type contracts with some different, with vendors to have them come in and put together a comprehensive platform of infrastructure improvements and energy improvements. Since then, at the time we tabled it, and doing some research, seeing the very unfortunate circumstances surrounding what happened to the city of Oroville with a similar type of program, I felt it was in our best interests to not pursue that type of program, but instead we will pursue individual projects. So we'll do a solar project at Central, get proposals for that, and do it like that. Additionally, when we're looking at these types of projects, it's really, you're trying to really stretch your dollars as far as you can, but having some additional infrastructure funds through COVID money, potential FEMA money, and potential money from the Bird Street School, we don't need to kind of be on the most desperate path to get these implemented. So we are already working with PG&E to figure out, they have on-bill financing, and we're working to see kind of what those opportunities are to try to kind of do it ourselves in pieces as opposed to having one big comprehensive program. But knowing the issues that the city of Oroville had that played out in the newspaper and on the news, with things that weren't delivered, we felt that it was prudent to just not accept the bids since they're already tabled. Just don't accept them, and then that'll be the end of this particular RFP. Additionally, since then, our main person from NG has quit, and so even one of the main, NG's, they have somebody else that they like to sub in. But even our main contact, who was kind of the driving force behind the NG bid, is gone as well. So things have changed dramatically, and I just would recommend that we move forward with a different path. We're still going to move forward. We're still already working on a different path, trying to find those energy savings and looking at what solar would mean to us. We're just going to do it piece by piece. So I would just ask the board to just reject the bids, and we'll move on.
Are we looking into getting bids from local firms?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, of course. We haven't gotten that far yet. Right now, what we've done is I met with PG&E a few times about their on-bill financing program, and they have a firm that does like a real high-level free energy audit called Willdan. So we brought Willdan in, and they worked on that today, and they're going to kind of say, well, looks like a machine that's an old clunker that would easily be replaced, and the savings would be more than the cost per month if you split it up over 10 years. And then you can do the PG&E on-bill financing for that. So we would be able to potentially replace some of our main offenders with just doing on-bill financing. Yes, I'm paying a loan payment over a course of years, but I'm still saving money, and I have a new machine that's going to work much better and have a better climate for our students. And there is, limits on the PG&E stuff, and there are other venues and avenues of money to finance these things. But we felt, we're already moving forward with that. But once we start to identify what those units are, what those projects are, then we'll start to have RFPs that will go out to everybody to bid, including all of our local companies, that can do that type of work. Because there'll be different types of machines. Some are large machines that will require more of a commercial type of firm, and some of them are the smaller units that other firms might be able to bid on that aren't necessarily the big time commercial ones.
What kind of machine are we redone?
HVAC.
HVAC. Okay.
HVAC. Yeah, it's all HVAC. I'm sorry. Yeah. So
we're going to buy a big machine.
So the plan for our energy future is we need to really reduce the amount of energy we're using, and that's been the focus. We did the solar lighting project in 3 phases. That Galloway finished before he retired, where we ended up with the new lighting in the gym at Central, which was awesome, because if you had been in there before, it was very, very orange.
It was very yellow, yes.
So that was a huge savings in energy by going to LED in all of our schools interior and exterior, but it took a lot of pieces and a lot of moving stuff around, me and him shuffling stuff, mostly him. And then, the next step are our HVAC units, and then also, working on making our buildings a little bit more airtight. And also windows a little bit. But the HVAC units pay off pretty well, especially some of the older ones. We have some that are from like the 70s and 80s that would probably make a lot of sense to replace. But they're still operational. So, we're hoping that this kind of a program will help us replace those things, have more energy efficient school sites. And then we'll start looking at, hey, where does solar make sense for us? Because obviously it's not going to work at all of our school sites. You look at a site like Ophir, it's in the trees. You think, well, that's really not a Stanford also. But you think about the central Wyandotte campus as a whole, and that's something where we could get a field of solar that goes to all three. And you go, well, that seems like it's really obvious. And let's get the obvious stuff, the low hanging fruit, while it's there. So it's all in the kind of the plan, but we're just going to do it piece by piece. But we are moving forward with it. And we've already had the meetings. Like I said, we already had Wildan come in, and we're working on moving this forward.
So how much, what's the percentage rate on the financing?
The percentage of, I don't know off the top of my head what it is for the
Okay.
interest rate. I'm not sure. That's something that we haven't gotten to. We're still in the sort of investigative phase, trying to figure out what's even the possibilities.
Okay. We'll keep us posted on how that goes. At this time, do we have any other comments or questions or concerns? All right, motion to approve the rejection of the proposed infrastructure modernization savings programs.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Pamela, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes, the motion carries. At this time, I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 7:21 PM.